honest. I don't remember if we set a time. Oh, 3. We were going to do 3 p.m. Eastern. Okay.
Okay, perfect. Okay, great. So, you're all set to go, correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. People are ready to join. Once again, if you need anything, just let me know.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. I'm going to give it another minute, let people stroll in. Hope everyone's doing great today. Thanks for being here. And we've got a lot on our agenda. I was just compiling a bunch of questions. So please feel free to reflect while we take another minute before people join us and see if you have questions, because we absolutely will have some moments for AMA today where you can ask me anything career-wise. So feel free to jot down what's on your mind, but we'll definitely share a bunch of content as well to get the wheels turning. And I'm just going to give it another minute while people stroll in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay. All right. I will get us going, and I think we're going to have lots more people join in the next minute or two. But again, thank you for being here, and just want to say hello. My name is Rachel, and I am the founder and CEO and career coach at Woken. And we are excited, as always, to be back on Fishbowl. And be sure to follow my profiles to be notified of future conversations. We're always back here with more and unique topics on different career goals and focuses. And today we are going to be talking about debunking some myths. And so, there's a lot of mindsets, there's a lot of approaches that people have that may or may not serve you, right? But they're commonplace. And so we want to talk about what those are and how to reframe them. And then if you have any, mindsets or limiting beliefs or any approaches that you want to talk about, please do feel free to bring those to the table. And I also have some pre-submitted questions. So we've got a bunch of content, and then we'll definitely open it up to the audience Q&A. So feel free to raise your hand and join the stage, or you can actually direct message me, and I'll keep your name anonymous. So that is kind of the gist of what we got going for today. Again, thank you so much for being here. And I'll quickly just introduce myself, and then we're going to dive into the context here. So I started out, I was at Goldman Sachs, and then I was at Bridgewater Associates. From there, I did coaching training through NYU and got certified through the International Coach Federation. I also did a tech MBA at NYU Stern, and I've been building my own career coaching business for about 7 or so years now. So I've seen, lots of situations, lots of different types of people. I've coached hundreds of professionals through a variety of different career goals. So really have just truly the best part of my job. I get such perspective on a lot of different patterns that different people face at work. So I'm here to kind of dispel some myths and see how we can help you all with your path forward. So I am just going to kind of dive right in. And today's focus, it's a little bit about when you're making decisions around your direction. That's where a lot of these approaches come into play. But truly, there could be, approaches or limiting beliefs that have to do with really any career goal. So we can zoom out. But I'm just going to dive in, and then please do raise your hands at any time. So I'll just start with some broad context. A majority of employees are actually disengaged at work, right? So I think the recent report from Gallup was somewhere around 79%. And often this actually relates to your personal well-being, your ability to thrive. And so we do, place focus on this because figuring out your place at work, it does affect you as a person outside of work. You want to find your work meaningful and feel that hope for the future and feel that impact that you're having. There's also statistics around how people are in roles that are misaligned with their personality. So a big focus of mine is, how do you find that fit? And so the reason I say these statistics is because it's not just you. It's a lot of people. And so we want to get a little deeper into really identifying what's going on with your role, your industry, or your environment, and where's the alignment or misalignment, and what can you do to say, okay, here's my next change, and here's how it's going to be better in a better direction, and here's really where I want to go in my future. So we can get very specific, right? I think a lot of this, when we talk about career directions, it's often very vague and fluffy and woo woo. And it's like, figuring out your passion and figuring out your dream role. I never really say words like that. I like to just make it realistic, right? Like, what's going on with your role? What's going on with your industry? What's going on with your environment? What are your choices? What's your direction? What's a fit and what's not a fit? Right. So that's what we're going to dive into. The benefits of finding that job alignment, like I said, it is going to affect your personal life, your physical and mental health, as well as your wealth potential. It actually, studies show that when you are in job alignment, you're engaged at work, you're actually going to make more money in that role. It's also going to make your job search so much more efficient and effective. I see a lot of people in job search searching for so many different types of things, and it's confusing and it's overwhelming, and it's not going to help your story and your brand to shine. So I think some people worry about narrowing in, but there's a way to focus, make sure your brand and story and direction is clear while still not limiting yourself. It's also going to just benefit your career overall. We want you to develop organically and get promotions and retain and find a company you can grow with over the course of time. We also want you to have that impact, feel productive, and feel innovative. So there's so many benefits to finding this job alignment, but I know it's hard because we go through life and it's like, a small portion of people actually are engaged at work. So it's hard to see those examples of people that have done it, but I'm here to show you how can you actually make this applicable to yourself and figure out your direction, right, in a way that's going to serve you. So I'm going to dive in and I'm going to do some of this debunking that we talked about. And I'm going to talk about the common approaches that people take and how to flip it on its head and how to reframe it in a more constructive fashion. And then again, if I'm missing any of these approaches that you're having, please do add to the mix. But I'm going to go through the common ones that I typically see. So the first one is stress, right? Because stress simply means that we feel that goal or challenge or problem is important. We place care on it. But that doesn't mean that, if you're feeling emotional or stressed when you're sitting down to do your work, your career exploration, or your job search, I always say just hands off keys, right? Because you want to re-find a moment when you can feel centered. And what I would say is apply some structure to the process. When you're feeling stressed, it makes you want to act in like these rash kind of ways. Like we may just open up the job boards and apply to anything, right? Is that really what we need to be doing? So you want to take a step back and you want to have structure to say, okay, what's my goal? Is my goal to clarify my direction? If so, what are the steps I can take to get there? Or is my goal to build my network? Okay, what are the steps to get there? Is my goal to build my brand? What are the steps I need to get there? And just sort of break it down, slow it down, get the right resources and support. And remember, there's a strategic process to all of this versus, operating out of a feeling of stress. So try to, again, that feeling is normal, but just be wary of acting when you're in that emotion. Okay. So that's the first one. The second thing I often see is, people obviously are seeking security. We need a job to take care of ourselves. Absolutely. But sometimes when you're picking a job and it's just for the sake of security, I've seen people say, oh, this job is really hot or really in demand or whatever, but like they ignore, am I going to be good at that? Am I going to be interested in that? Right? So when you're picking a path forward, you don't only want to look for security. You do want to consider what is a sustainable, secure path, but you also want to consider, I'm a human. I've got strengths. I've got weaknesses. I've got things I'm great at. I've got things that I would hate doing. And when you really are interested in that path forward, it's going to help you to shine. It's going to help you to want to upskill. It's going to help you to be energetic in that interview. And it's going to be clear. You have to remember that someone at the other end of your interview, they're human too. And they're going to smell it and they're going to sniff it if you are just forcing the answers. So we have to figure out what is the right fit and also what is secure. Okay, so that's the second one. The third one is a lot of times people say, I can't. I'm not capable of doing this. I would never be able to get there, things like that. I always say learn before you determine whether you can or can't do anything, right? And so I think, the key here is making decisions that are informed. A lot of times our emotions drive a decision. But if you have a concern, right, turn that concern into a question, turn that question into answers, and go meet with people in those roles to really understand the patterns and the trends of who do you hire or how do people typically pursue this path? What are the stories of, the reality of the way that somebody pursues this? And, what are the ways to break in? What do you look for in a new hire? Things like that. And then when you have all that information, that's when you can decide, is that a journey I want to go down or not? So just be very wary if you're ruling yourself out before you've even entered the ring, right? So that's number 3. Number 4 is thinking about your past. A lot of people limit themselves from, here's only ever what I've done before. The reason so many people talk about transferable skills is because there's an art to figuring out what have I done and how is it relevant to what I want to do going forward. So the way I would reframe it is your story. Your story is what's going to make it explicit of how your past skills and experiences connect to where it is you want to go, right? So if you are looking for a job quickly, a lot of times people do look for, okay, I've know this role, I've been in this role, let me go find another one of that role. And that's fine. But if you are interested in pivoting, don't hold yourself back by saying, oh, I've never done this, it's too late, I don't have the skills. Your story, you can connect the dots for somebody. And again, the art of transferable skills, right? So the beauty of transferable skills, it's a lot of people struggle to recognize what their transferable skills are. But sometimes it's really just the language around it. For example, a teacher could be, grading students' papers, or a teacher could be measuring individuals' performance and analyzing data for trends of, progress or something, right? I'm sort of making this up, but there's ways to say the same thing in different words, right? Making things transferable. But this is all predicated on, do you know your direction? If you know your direction, that transferable language is going to become so much easier for you to frame your background, okay? So that's number 4. Number 5 is thinking about the long term. A lot of people say, what do I want to be in decades from now? I would encourage you to think about the short term. What role or what company or what team or what industry would be an amazing fit for you, like right now? And you do want to understand, where could that role lead me in the future? But it will lead to a lot more natural, organic paths if you're like, I'm in an amazing role right now, and then let me see where this naturally leads to in the future. It's sort of that healthy level of unpredictability. Like, you're still informed about the role that you're in now and where it could go, but you don't have to determine exactly the step. You want to be immersing yourself in the space that you're so interested in that it will open the doors to things naturally, right? So really, I would over-index on the short term, and just understanding where that role could lead. A lot of times if somebody picks, oh, I want to be this in so many years, you're going to change by that point. The industry is going to change. There's so much that's changing so rapidly that's why I don't really love to think, oh, so far out, if that makes sense, okay? The next one is being open. A lot of times people tell me, I'm open to any role, I'm open to any industry. And that is my number one sort of red flag of, to me, that means you don't know what you want, or you don't know what is the right fit for you. And it's so important to know what is the right fit for you. So what I usually say is be picky, and that might seem like an aggressive way to think about it, but you're not going to limit yourself. There's a difference between the volume of opportunities and the narrowness and the focus and the direction of what roles and what industries are a fit, and go finding more of those things. Okay, so if you're open to so many things, really ask yourself, do I need to learn more and compare and contrast and prioritize which one of these actually makes the most sense for me so that your brand, your networking, all your efforts can be really intentional. If you're dividing yourself across a lot of directions, I just see that oftentimes that is the downfall for people, even though it's counterintuitive. People think being open means more opportunities. It actually can be more confusing, right? What the other benefit is if you double down on a direction, you're actually going to learn so much more. You're going to see more of the interview questions. You're going to see what they pay attention to. You're going to see what they ask. You're going to, ramp up your stories. You can ramp up your upskilling. You can ramp up your portfolio, and you can really make it so much more clear that you are that fit if you know exactly what you're going after, right? So there's benefits there. The next one is that people often choose paths based on just what they're aware of. There's so much out there, and it doesn't mean you have to learn about every single role, but especially with the change of pace of so much that's going on out there, with technology, it's okay to say, I don't know. I'm not sure yet. Be open with the people who converse with you to say, I'm looking into A, B, and C. Do you know anyone in those areas? You don't have to force an answer just because somebody asks it of you. Obviously, if you're in an interview, yes, you need to figure out how to answer those questions. But if you're in networking or if you're in a social setting, let people meet you where you're at. It's okay to say what you're looking into. It's okay to say what you're not sure of. You don't have to just force it based on only your current set of knowledge. Really go expand your knowledge to see what roles, what industries are out there that you're not even aware of. Okay. The next one is interviewing well. A lot of people think interviews are this thing to I have to check the box. I have to tell them what they want to hear. I have to prepare. I would really think about this is a real conversation with a real person who has a real job on the line and a salary to back it. And there's really problems to be solved. So who do you want to have that conversation with and about what? Right? Versus, when you think about the surface level of the interview, you're going to rise to that occasion. But when you think about the root of what it really is, you can actually ask yourself, what conversation should I even be in? Because I can go try to be in any one of these conversations with any team or any role or any company, right? So just be very wary if you're showing up to interviews, trying to tell them what they want to hear versus actually figuring out who you want to talk to and about what, and then figuring out how does that help you figure out your direction for your search. A lot of times people think about applying, and we're constantly just really on those online job boards. I would think about reframing it. If you are in your job search mode, or even if you're in exploration, I like to reframe it as, how can I explore, or how can I just simply develop and advance my career and build my knowledge, right? When you're just constantly applying online, first of all, it's defeating, it's monotonous, and it's not effective. So rethink about the other ways you can spend time that really help you to learn and meet people and build your knowledge and figure out your clarity on what your best fit role and direction is. You might upskill, you might increase your branding. There's so many other ways to be productive and get yourself out there and push your career forward besides just these online apps. They're not the end all be all, okay? A lot of time, the next one I'll talk about is a lot of times that people look at others around them. We look at everyone else, right? We're human, it happens. But I would try to notice when that happens, and I would try to reframe and say, I'm the one who's going to be living and breathing this job, right? Not someone else, and so what is best for me? Now, if somebody provides you with information or inspiration, great, we can keep them. But if not, and you're noticing that you're following these people and you're really not feeling great about it, guess what? Unfollow, and really think about who you're following, whether it's on socials or on LinkedIn, or who's in your circle and who you're networking with that's actually serving you versus not. So be very wary of comparing yourself. If you can learn something from somebody, great. If they can get you to the next level and mentor you and teach you something, great. If they can give you perspective, awesome. But if it's anything that's not serving you, just remember that choice of who and sort of what information you're gathering and where from, okay? And the next one is fear, okay? This is normal, and we're human, and we have a lot of natural, concerns and uncertainties and hesitations and fears. Similar to what I was saying earlier, whenever you have a concern or a fear, jot that thing down and literally just reframe it into a question and make that question turn into an answer. Sometimes we need to turn fear into learning, which means we understand the role better, we understand the career path better, we meet with people who are in those paths, or sometimes we turn those fears into reflection, meaning I just have to ask myself these hard questions. I have to figure out how I feel about this, or I have to work on my confidence, whatever it may be. So remember that those fears actually can be a trigger or a signal to something that can be more constructive. It's your body telling you that maybe something's not right, but okay, that can be a tool. And what do we need to do about that? And how is that going to push you forward? How can you be practical and constructive to turn that into some action, some next step, and finding the help that you need, right? Based on whatever that fear is, right? I always think about our mindsets as like weights in a backpack, right? You're bringing these things around with you every day, whether you want to believe it or not. This backpack is invisible, but it's on you. So it's either going to slow you down, right? Or it could speed you up. Imagine you have little like engines under your backpack, right? That helps you speed up. Or they could drag you down if they're truly weights. So like think about what mindsets can we remove? What mindsets can we add to the backpack? And what are you giving power to that you shouldn't, right? We might be holding on to something because it's comfortable, even if it's not actually serving you. So take a minute. Let's take an active reflection. What mindset do you want to leave behind? And which of these mindsets do you want to take forward, right? And feel free to take notes, jot it down, because we do need to consecrate, hopefully your wheels are turning while I'm talking here of how this may relate to you. So that's kind of the key thoughts on mindset. If anyone has questions, please do let me know. I'll keep going for now, and I'll talk a little bit more about career exploration, how to think about it. And then I do have some other pre-submitted questions, but please feel free, if there's something on your mind, you can totally ask it. So here's a 3-part framework that I would think about. When you are trying to either reflect on your past roles, or if you're trying to clarify your future direction, break it down into the function, the content, and the environment. So the function is, what are your day-to-day responsibilities? What are the skills that you would be spending your time in? You can also think of it like a pie chart, right? So instead of asking somebody, oh, what's the day-to-day of your job? Think about the pie chart of the week. Any given job has about maybe between 4 and 7 key areas, right? So what are the core things you would spend your time doing? And what relates to your affinities, your tendencies, your propensities, your strengths, and what you're great at, right? There's a lot of different styles of work. It's very different to be sitting there selling somebody versus training somebody versus analyzing data versus, researching versus writing. There's so many different types of activities, right? So what should go into your day-to-day? The second bucket is content. And so, for example, if you're analyzing data, what type of data are you analyzing? Or if you're doing research or writing or training or even sales, what is the product or service that we're selling, right? What is the, topic that we're training on, right? So there's a big difference between the style of the work versus the actual topic and the nature of it. And then the third is the work environment of where do you thrive? What should it look and feel like? So this is a great, very powerful 3-part framework that you can always come back to, and you can always just, brain dump on a piece of paper, function, content, environment, and just brain dump what's been working, what hasn't been working, what do you want more of, what do you want less of in each of those 3 buckets. The other common ways that we like to talk about this is role, industry, and company culture. Those are the common words, but essentially we bring it down to the root. Right? So what is the root? It's the function. What is the role? It's the function of what you're doing all day. What is the industry? It's actually the mission and the purpose of why that company even exists, the impact that they have. Who do they help? How do they do it? Why do they do it? And the culture is, what are the people like, right? What's going on around you? What's the pace, right? Things like that. So if you are somebody who's still trying to figure out your career path, it is important to think about your mindset, but it's also important to think about, how do I actually do this? How do I do, career exploration? What do I do to gain more clarity on my path forward? So career exploration just to define it, right? A lot of people don't talk about what it is. It is a process that is distinct from your job search, is distinct. And ideally, it's a precursor to your job search, but you can also do it simultaneously if you had to. And it includes learning and reflection deeply to compare and contrast and clarify which role and which industry is the best fit for you. If you spend time just doing that, you will get to the point of actually becoming confident and certain in your path forward. So that's the definition. I'll walk you through the process of how you would actually do that, okay? How would you clarify your best fit direction? So first would be a little commitment to the process. You'd have to ask yourself, am I in a moment to actually do this? Like, do I need clarity? Do I want clarity? And is this something I want to pursue right now? The reflection comes next, right? So you're actually going to go really deep into who you are, and you're actually going to use that same 3-part framework that we talked about. So function, content, environment. You're really going to get to know yourself. What am I great at? What am I best at? What am I most natural at? What am I most interested in as it relates to the function, the content, and the environment? From there, you're going to have options, right? There might be a few roles on your radar, a few industries on your radar. You're going to figure out what are the options. Most career assessments will just spit out an answer and you're just like, what? What is this? So be realistic and say, you know what? There's maybe 3, 4, 5, however many options. That's okay. So start there, right? Then you can do a little bit of online research, right? Google is our friend. ChatGPT is our friend. YouTube, TikTok. I mean, there's so many ways to gather information online, but it is not the end all be all. After you gather a little bit of information, you want to network and you want to meet people in the role that you're actually considering. And I actually have a list on our website, a free list of 50 questions you can ask during a call like that, during a networking call. Because a lot of times people come to me and they're like, I did networking, but it wasn't sufficient. So you have to be very concrete, very strategic, very creative in what you ask and how you ask it. You're not asking their opinion. You're asking for information of, what is your week? What is a typical project? How do you typically break into this? And just go deeper, ask follow-ups, get really specific. You want to paint a picture so clearly that you can understand what that role looks like. So much so that you could walk in tomorrow and just do it. You understand the role that deeply. That is what's going to allow you to go through what I call pivot loops. So every week, if you're doing learning, reflecting, synthesizing, and pivoting, you're going to figure out, okay, this role isn't for me. This role sounds interesting. Or I just heard about this role and I never even knew what that was before. And you're going to have next steps. So with each of these learning moments, you're going to have a next step. If you keep doing that, it will get you to the point of saying, I actually feel certain. I feel informed about what these paths are like and actually what I'm like and how to compare the two and how to find that fit, right? You're going to get to that point of certainty. If you're not at the point of certainty, if you still have open questions or open options, it means we need more learning or more reflection or both. Okay. And then after you have that clear direction, that's really when you can pursue upskilling decisions, right? Courses, certifications, whatever it may be. That's when you can really double down on your personal brand, really tailoring your resume, things like that. And of course, that's when you can job search. So if you are in job search right now and you're not sure of your direction, I would ask yourself, do I want to sort of take a step back? Do I want to just, even taking a week or two, you can do so much in such a little span of time to learn. I mean, ideally, you might need more than a week or two, but it really depends. If you say you're 80% clear, it is worth getting to that 100% crystal clear clarity, right? What are your open questions? Jot them down. What are your open options? Jot them down and figure out how can you get to that finish line. It is going to be a game changer for all your other career growth, right? How do you get where you're going if we don't know where we're going, right? So that's the key to exploration. And it's an underrated key to job search too, right? I always say if the career search isn't fun, the job won't be either. So you really want to ask yourself, am I enjoying what I'm looking into? And if not, is that a signal that I might, want to explore other paths, right? I hope that all makes sense. I do have some pre-submitted questions, so I'm going to go through some of those. And if anybody in the audience has a question, please do feel free to raise your hand or, DM me. So the first question says, in an interview, how can somebody explain that they want to explore different options and are uncertain about their career path? So, this is a really interesting question because in an interview, it's kind of the last thing you'd want to talk about, right? So, if somebody's asking this, I would really ask yourself when you're in the interview, like be there and try to prove your case. But if you're feeling that you're not sure, then outside of that interview, I would take all the steps that we just talked about, right? The only time I would talk about that in an actual recruiting process is like if you didn't get a role and you want to explore other roles, you could be honest about that. Or if they mention to you that there's 2 or 3 open roles, which sometimes happens, you could do that active reflection to help them figure out which one of those openings are the best fit for you if you're already in conversations with a recruiter. So, but as you can see, the confusion that you may have when you're already in the interview process, if you're in an interview and you're still not sure if that's a fit for you, I would take a big step back and figure out how can I just, double down on exploration so that I can re-find other interviews that actually are a strong fit for me. If you're job searching and you're not sure about your path, take that step back. Take that step back. Okay. The next question says, I'm feeling directionless and lost in my career. I can't shake off the thought that this career isn't for me, but I don't know what else I'd do. I know people keep saying to just see this as a means to support my life and find purpose outside of work, but I'm struggling since we spend so much of our time working. Can anyone relate? How do you cope? So honestly, I would go back to the process we just talked about, right? Which is career exploration. I think a lot of people talk about, oh, like, let me do my passion outside of work, right? I'm here to say that, like, look, if your passion is something that wouldn't be able to afford your like life and you just want to do volunteering on the side of your job, absolutely, you can totally do that. But there is a way to think about within your role and within your industry what is suitable, right? You don't need to say to yourself, like, what is this dream path? You can say, what is suitable? What is fitting? What is aligned? What makes sense for me and my strengths and my interests? And there is a way to find realistic options that also do feel interesting. That's the goal of exploration. The beauty of exploration is that you can work through your priorities in the sandbox. So you can say, all right, what's my salary requirements? What are my strengths? What are my interests? What are all these things, right? And how do I use that time to actually sort through the options and figure out, what could be the right balance, right? Cool. Lori, we have a question. Please do come to the stage and let me know. I think I invited you up, but let me know if that didn't work, Lori, and raise your hand again and I can try it. I want to make sure we can get your question answered. Or maybe it was a mistake, but please do raise your hand again if I missed it. All right. I will keep going in the meantime because I don't see anyone coming up here. All right. So this question says, oh, okay. I see another hand. Awesome. There we go. Cool. Marlene, feel free to come in. If you have a question, please do raise your hand again so I can come back to you. Yeah,
Okay,
Marlene,
yes.
tell
Can
me
you hear me?
what you got.
So I feel very pigeonholed in my career being a technology trainer, but yet my career encompasses or it's very broad. So when I try to focus on a career change or a career path, I feel lost because I'm too broad, but yet pigeonholed. Does that make sense?
I think you might need to specify it for me a little bit. Like, are you saying it's broad in the sense that you can go do that role anywhere? Is that kind of what you mean?
I train so many different applications and
Right.
I teach so many. I know applications and the theoretics of every application in a specific industry, and yet they're all transferable skills, but yet they're really not because they're for a specific industry, or I'm too broad because I know all of Microsoft or I know all of the
Well, so let
legal
me ask you
applications.
this. Do you know where you'd want to take it in the future? Like, what would be your ideal, your preference? Because if you feel like it could be broad and it could be applicable and it could be transferable, then it simply just comes down to Do you know what you want to do? And then you'll make that story clear. You'll make the brand clear of how it's transferable. It sounds like you have a lot of options and opportunities, but do you know where you would choose to take your direction? Because
That's a great question.
yeah. And that might be where you could narrow in, because it sounds like if you have a lot of options of how to brand or position yourself, the key would be coming back to your choice. It's great if there's broad applications of what you do. So I would ask yourself, come back to that 3-part framework: role, industry, environment. What are the role titles on your mind that you think you'd want to go do, or options that you have, and go learn from those people, or industries that you think are interesting and meaningful, and which one do you want to pursue, and prioritize those and learn about those. And then the work environment: size and stage of the company culture, things like that. Another way, if you're just trying to narrow down on like what's a fit and what's not, and like what am I trying to optimize for, like if you're not sure what's going well in your career or not, you can still use that 3-part framework. But you want to ask yourself, sort of make a table, right? And the columns are role, industry, environment, and the rows are what's a fit or what's not a fit. And so if you're just trying to diagnose, like, what have I liked about my roles, or what have I not liked about my roles? What have I liked about these industries? What have I not liked? The other way to think about it is just totally in white space, where it's not just reflecting on the past, but it's saying, what do I know about myself? And what would I want to spend all my time doing if I had the ultimate choice, right? And that relates to role, or which industry do I feel most interested in? So it doesn't have to relate to the reflection of the past, but if you're just, it sounds like you're trying to, I would get more specific on what am I actually trying to optimize for? Like, what is going well, what's not, and what does that mean? Because sometimes people are like, I just need the same role in a different industry. Other people are like, you know what, this role is not aligned to my strengths at all, and I really need a role pivot. So you really want to ask yourself, am I trying to prioritize a role change, an industry change, or maybe it's the work environment? It's usually one of those three, or two of those three, or sometimes it's all three. But for any of those listeners in the audience, I would really think about which one of those three, or which two of those three, and which are your greatest priorities. It's hard to change them all at once. Some people are like, I really just want to do anything it takes to get into this industry. So, okay, great. Then keep same role and pivot industry. Or if you're like, I really need a role change, okay, that's a bigger deal. It's not impossible, but it takes, you really want clarity on what that role should be, and then upskilling and branding and sort of making that pivot happen. But the first step is diagnosing, what am I even need to optimize for, right? What's going well, what's not, right? Does that help, Marlene?
Very much. Thank you. Thank you. Role, industry, environment. Got it. I can work with that.
Okay, good. Awesome. And yeah, feel free to, any other questions from the audience. And I know we had a question earlier, so please feel free to come back up, and feel free to DM me or raise your hand if there's any other questions. But if not, I will keep going with the pre-submitted questions. So the person says, I've been in management consulting for 5.5 years and I'm 30. I feel lost in my career and limited motivation. I've switched around industries a lot, which makes it hard to show expertise in an area if I switch careers. I plan to make a manager before I leave the firm, but I feel lost. Any advice on how to find an impactful path when my background does not fit what I want to do? I would like to work in sustainability, but I have no experience. So if you know where you want to go, but you don't have that experience yet, then, it's a journey towards sort of pivoting towards it. And there's a lot of different strategies, right? So again, if you want to keep a similar role, but just change industry, right? Because when this person mentioned, I want to be in sustainability, that could either mean a sustainability type of role or sustainability type of industry. So get really clear. And there's so many different tactics based on where you want to go. Can you keep the same role in order to pivot industry? Or, if you really want to pivot role, you would have to really upskill, figure out what course or certification or boot camp or what is required, what education skills and training are required to get me where I'm trying to go. Then you brand yourself, right? And you want hands-on experience. Upskilling could be in the form of a course, but it could also be in the form of doing volunteering or doing some pro bono or side work, contract work, freelance work. Get your hands dirty, get involved, get immersed in the area that you want to be in. If there's a professional association, join it. If there's some meetups and events, join it. If there's a conference, join it. Start entering into the space that you just want to be in, right? So that's one of the ways to pivot, right? Of course, you want to upskill, you want to brand yourself, you want to immerse yourself in that environment, and you want to network, right? So meeting with people directly in a 20 to 30 minute phone call to figure out what they do and how people break in. And, sometimes with pivots, it's a two-step process. Like, oh, maybe this role will eventually lead to that role, right? So you really want to understand the nuances of how can I break in to where I'm going, right? So know the direction first, learn deeply from those people. And that's really what's going to help you figure out how have people pivoted in, and who and what do you look for at each stage, right? And do I need to start in this team in order to move over to that team later, right? So really a deep understanding from the people in your target field, right? But pivoting, it's all about clarity, upskilling, branding, networking, right? Immersing yourself. Those key ingredients. If you keep doing that, eventually, you're going to get where you want to go. But that learning is really what's going to help you figure out what is the strategy, right? What role should I go after? The last thing you want to do is go after something blindly of like, oh, I think I could apply to product manager, or I think I could apply to this, but it's like, do you know that you have the background for that role? And if not, is there another role that's a stepping stone? So be as informed as humanly possible, especially if you're trying to pivot, right? Cool. Okay. Next question says, I've never felt so lost in my career. I'm in a specific field of marketing where jobs don't exist right now, and barely any marketing jobs in general. I'm behind compared to my peers, and I've always worked so hard. I've had 5 internships in college. I feel like a failure 10 years later. I'm stuck, unable to get promoted. I don't know how I can find another job. I have nothing to offer from being pigeon-toed. How do you get out of a long career rut? Interesting. Okay. Well, first and foremost, which I probably haven't made this clear just yet, but it's okay to get support. So like, if you're in a rut and you feel like you've been, spending years trying and not getting anywhere, whether it's a mentor, a peer, a coach, somebody like that, I mean, sometimes just putting attention and focus to get more strategic, create a plan, have another pair of eyes and ears with you, that's always a great starting point. To get that support. The other thing I would say is there's a big difference between, do you want a job search or do you want to get promoted? Because there's a whole pathway to get promoted, and the person mentioned that. And then there's a difference between, how do I job search, right? I could go into either of those, but I think with a career rut, you really want to ask yourself, where do I want to go? What's my goal? And honestly, how do I get some support to get there, right? If you've been going at it on your own, to be honest, that's kind of the answer, I think, is getting more support so that you're not spinning your wheels and creating a plan that actually feels informed to you, Cool. Okay. This question says, what advice can you give to somebody who works a 9-to-5 job, but also has started their own business and wants to fully commit, but lacks the necessary funds without their day job? Yeah. So if you're thinking about entrepreneurship, I think it's great to start on the side of a job. And sort of build that runway, right? Like build up your website, start finding clients and start landing your first client. The minute you land your first client, you're going to have figured out and tested your marketing, your positioning, your website, your pricing, and you're going to iron out all those kinks. And then you're going to be able to figure out, okay, when is that tipping point, right? You might take on a client outside of your job, and then there's going to be a tipping point to say, okay, if I were to leave my job and I have this one client, could I afford a little bit of time to go find a second client, right? And again, it very much depends what type of business you're launching. Some businesses need a lot of upfront, capital to, if there's, physical products or things like that. It really depends what you're offering. But if it's more service-based, you can sort of build up your brand, build up your website, and start figuring out, where are my clients? How do I position myself? And figuring out how to land that first client. That is going to help you figure out, when can I make this switch, right? When can I actually make the leap and make the jump, right? So test as much as you can while you're still in the job. Next question says, what can someone do if they are new to the job market and have no experience. And I actually have a second question that's very similar. 2024 graduate looking for a job. It's difficult finding a job that doesn't require experience, focused on building my career and eager to learn and develop my skills. What steps you should take. So it's a really good point. I would say be very, very informed as much as humanly possible to make sure you are looking for the right role titles that are actually entry level. I recognize sometimes entry level postings will ask for a certain number of years, but if it's asking for 1 to 2 years, I mean, that's still within the realms of a new graduate, right? And, in the meantime, as much as humanly possible, I would find hands-on experience, even if it's pro bono, contract, hourly work, freelance work, check out Upwork, try to just get any experience under your belt. Because even like small apprenticeship, fellowship, internships, even things like that can build up the fact that you have relevant project experience to get where you want to go. The more relevant experience you can build up, right? So figure out scrappy ways to do it. Even shadowing. There was a point in my career I had like a business development internship. It was just like 3 weeks. I must have been in my undergrad, and I was mostly shadowing. So even something like that. Where possible, but get very scrappy. For example, there's even organizations where you can volunteer, right? There's organizations where they'll pair you with a nonprofit to work on a project and build up your portfolio. And I've seen that for like designers, I've seen that for consultants, right? So finding opportunities to get hands-on experience, to build up in the beginning. And of course, networking, right? So meeting people as much as you can is such a key to job search, right? And also leverage your university and their career services and what employers they have relationships with and things like that. Because if you're actually out from undergrad, they should be helping you with that. The next question says, how do you level up your career when you have greater than 10 years experience, but not formal training or the actual title? Interesting. Okay, so I'm assuming this person means that they actually have experience in what it is they want to do, but they weren't formally trained in that or have had that title. So with job titles, it's a really interesting thing. You want to be very careful with like your resume and your LinkedIn with past job titles. If you were given a weird title that's vague or not specific or non-industry standard, it's okay on your materials to sort of equate what was my actual role title if it was described in an industry standard terms. And that way, first of all, this will help with the ATS systems to get things picked up. But you can even do it in parentheses, right? So here was the actual title, but here's what it really means. And again, same for LinkedIn and resume. So, even if you were given a weird title, you can sort of clarify that. The other way to do it on your materials is sort of like a functional resume. So for example, say you were an account manager, but within that role, you really did 3 things. You did project management, client management, and vendor management. You can actually put like subsections within your resume to call out what are the buckets of my skill areas? Like how do I group the actual responsibilities that I had and label it so that on the resume, it's extremely clear that I did these 3 things. So that's another way to sort of call it out if it wasn't your title, but if it was a part of your role. And then with the formal training, I would just ask yourself, do you actually think they need me to have formal training? And if so, let me go get that. And if not, then I wouldn't worry about it, right? You need to understand from hiring managers, is that something they actually care about or not, right? We just got to get those answers. And, you might talk to 5 or 10 people and not everyone's going to have the same answer, but you're looking for patterns. You're looking for somebody to say, oh, typically for this type of role across different companies, most people are telling me this, right? You want to identify the trends that help you understand what is worth your time or not with upskilling, right? Cool. Let me know if there's any questions. And I'm checking my messages as well. And please do raise your hand, but I'll keep going. This says, how honest should you be in an interview if the only reason you want the job is for the pay? I mean, obviously you can't tell them that. So you need to show up to an interview, and I'm sorry that I'm laughing. You need to go to the interview and you need to prove why you're going to be great at this job. So the problem is, if you know you only need the job for the pay, that's fine if it's in the back of your head. But when you show up to the meeting, you want to show up. Like, imagine you're interviewing for like marketing manager. You want to show up as a marketing manager. You want to step into it as if you're already with that hat on. You want to talk the jargon of marketing. You want to be in that realm. Show them you understand the tricks of the trade. Show them when you've done this before. That is what they're looking for. So even if you know in the back of your head you just need it for pay, I would do some meditations before you go into that interview to find the confidence and the energy. Otherwise, like, look, you don't have to be jumping for joy in the interview, but they want to find somebody who's energized to do the job. They do, right? If you're sitting there sleeping at the wheel, that's not the person getting hired. So we've got to separate our need for the job versus how can I show up and show them the best traits of my personality, my energy, my interests, my strengths, my capabilities, my past successes and achievements. That's what has to shine. Even if in the back of your head, you know you just need it. I actually have a great pre-interview meditation. If you want to check our website, we have things like that. But I would just make sure to separate and compartmentalize, right? So that you can show up in a great way, right? Hopefully that makes sense. Cool. The next question says, let's see. I'm an account manager. I'm feeling lost in my career growth. Not sure what the next step is in my career, but I want to move where there's a lot of opportunity and money. I'm losing interest in my job, even though the perks are amazing and I'm ready for a change. I only have a 1.5 years experience in the workforce and working at a big tech company. I got lucky to get the job I'm in now, but I don't feel challenged, even though my job is mid-level, consistent top performer, but not satisfied. That's interesting. So yeah, if you're great at your job, but you're not satisfied, I would really ask yourself, is this the right job or do you just need a higher level? Like, are you looking for a challenge in terms of stretch projects or a promotion or other, internal mobility? Maybe there's other teams or things going on at the company. Like, you kind of have to create your own challenge. When I was at Goldman, I literally took on a ton of projects that were just by my own volition. I had ideas, I noticed problems, I made a business case, I suggested it, I presented the idea, I made, here's why it makes sense. And I would get buy-in and I would go run with those initiatives, right? So what's interesting to you? What work or projects at work are interesting to you? Propose them, get buy-in, and see if you can run with it. If your company is not the type to allow you to do something like that or even pursue internal mobility, then you might want to explore a different role or a different company. But you want to figure out where you are right now in the company you're at. Is there ways to get involved with things that are interesting to you? And if not, what other role or company is interesting to you? It sounds like if you're not satisfied, you need to figure out what exactly would satisfy you in order to figure out how to go ask for that and go get that, right? Direction always precedes the effort, right? What is that direction? Okay, this question says, I recently moved to the US. I'm trying to navigate my career. I'm feeling lost. I don't have any experience in the US. I was thinking of being a financial analyst, but I don't have relevant experience and I'm not sure how to dive in. I do have experience as a credit analyst. Well, those don't seem entirely dissimilar to me. So if you've worked in credit, go meet some financial analysts and figure out what their job is. Is that even a job I want? How do they get trained or who gets hired or what do they look for to break into that? And is that something I want to go do, right? So it kind of relates to all these career exploration processes that we've been talking about. The next question says, are you able to negotiate pay at your company? How do you go about it? Do you bring up other offers, negotiate directly with HR, or confront your manager? What method has worked for you? So I do think you can negotiate, but truly, I would say on a yearly basis, usually that is the time when somebody's eligible to look at there's cost of living increase, there's merit increase, and there's just promotion in terms of a new title, a new level, a new role, right? Like, are you reaching the next level, right? So I would ask yourself, should I be vying for a promotion? Or if there's no true room for that, how can I, sometimes when you feel stuck, like, promotion sometimes is a waiting game. Like, I'm waiting for my manager to move up so I can take their role. But do you need their role or can you just move from, associate to just senior marketing manager or whatever it is, right? So can you find a new title and a new level that will allow you to earn that promotion and a higher pay because you've earned it with your impact and your achievements, even if you're not just replacing the next person above you. So I would always be having the conversation with whoever's higher up to you to say, what's the next level for me? Because usually a higher level or title or promotion is associated with the pay. Otherwise, it could just be yearly merit increase and cost of living increase. And I do think it is okay to bring that up to your manager. I don't necessarily think you have to go to HR. I think your manager is a good place to start and really have that conversation of, what do you need to see from me to get to the next level, right? What does growth look like here? If you have other job offers, that's a bit of a different scenario. And I think you would have to be pretty serious about, being in the final stages, not just like a first round, interview, to be able to bring that up. I do think you can bring that up. But I would just, be ready for anything. They may say, no, we can't do anything. You should go take that other job. I mean, who knows? They could react in any sort of way. So I would just be very, ready if that's truly the tactic you're going to use. We've sort of delved a bit into an AMA, but if anyone has any lingering questions, please do let me know. And I'm happy to spend the last few minutes with any questions that you all have in the audience. And if not, please do connect with me. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm always trying to help as much as possible and post things that are helpful. And we're always on Fishbowl. I'm on most social media accounts, and our website is iamwoken.com. And we have a ton of free resources on there. And we always offer a free initial coaching call if you're interested in chatting about you and your goals and your challenges, and hear some ideas from us. So we are here to help. I hope this was helpful today. And again, if anyone else has questions, please do feel free to ask. I'm happy to hang out for the next few minutes. And I hope this was helpful. And our next topic, I'm just looking ahead, we've got a chat on August 12th. And it's all about networking. So I know people are always kind of questioning and hesitant with, what is networking? How do I do it? So we are going to dive deeper into that in our August session. And if there's no other questions, I'm happy to give you guys a few minutes back. So thank you for being here today. And again, please do connect with me, reach out, let me know if you have questions. Happy to answer, happy to help. I know all of these things can be stressful, difficult, challenging. I get it. I'm here for you. You can totally navigate and master all of these things. And I'm here to help. So we'll talk soon.